But now the guys that have believed in him don't even believe in him anymore, and you're in a dangerous position when that starts happening. There's no sugarcoating it. This program's cooked, and they have nobody to blame but themselves and the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mike Norvell. Well, I did not think we'd be talking about this sorry and sucky college football team / program yet again this year, but here we are. It gets to a point where a team is so abysmal, so pathetic, so awful, so bad, it's not even worth talking about, and people don't even want to kick them when they're down. But man, oh man, things have gotten astronomically worse for Mike Norvell and the Florida State Cinnamon Rolls. And although I did see this coming and I brought it up about 6 to 8 weeks ago, it wasn't official. Well, now it is. Some of you may or may not recall the last time we talked about Florida State, one major key point I brought up. And that is no other than what Florida State is currently doing. It wasn't just going to affect them, or it's not just going to affect them this year. It's going to affect their future in a huge way. Because not only are you a laughingstock this year, but when you're losing games the way they're losing and you're just pretty much getting beat down every single week, these kids in high school, these 4- and 5-star recruits, especially in the state of Florida, they're seeing that and they're going, well, wait a minute. Why would I want to go there? I stated many weeks ago, what's happening this year isn't just going to affect them this year. It's going to affect them next year and the year after and so on. Because outside the game itself, the most important part about college football is recruiting. I don't care if you're Nick Saban. If you don't have dudes, you're not going to compete for a championship. Nick Saban's the greatest of all time, but if you give him a bunch of 2- and 3-star recruits, he ain't winning a chip. What made him so good is, yes, he was a great coach when it came to the X's and O's, but he was also an outstanding recruiter. You got to have dogs. As I like to call them, you got to have dudes. It's as plain and as simple as that. And I'm willing to bet a ton of you haven't heard this news just due to the fact nobody's talking about Florida State because they're irrelevant, but they've had not one, not two, but 3 4-star wide receiver recruits decommit. I'm going to say that yet again. They had not 1, not 2, but 3 4-star wide receiver recruits decommit. Now, I know what some of you may be sitting there saying, well, Matt, it's not that big of a deal. We'll just plug in the next 4-star and recruits, they decommit and commit and then recommit and do this and that several hundred times. And I agree. But here's why, if you are a Cinnamon Roll fan, you should be concerned. As where it stands right now, Florida State has 0. Let me say that word again, too. 0 wide receiver recruits in their up-and-coming class. They don't have 3. They don't have 2. They don't even have 1 single wide receiver committed in the 2025 class. Yeah, that's a problem. And in total, not counting just the wide receivers, and we'll talk more about them in just a second, they've had 5 4-star recruits decommit. And I'm not one to overreact to this, but I thought this was also interesting. You know where Florida State as a team is in the 24/7 Sports recruiting rankings? 48. But I want to go back to this, and it's the main reason I'm making this video. 0 wide receiver recruits. 0. I've never seen that before. Guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, we're not talking about in the class of 2028, 2027, 2020. We're talking about next year. And come on now, you don't got to be some rocket scientist to figure out why they had 3 of their 4-star wide receivers decommit. Think about what's going on. Think about how this Florida State, not just team, but offenses look this year. And it all starts with quarterback play. If you're a high school wide receiver and you have your pick of choice, you can go to Florida State, Georgia, Bama, wherever you want. After watching a Florida State game, why in the world would you think, oh yeah, I'm going to go play there? Why? If you're a prestigious wide receiver recruit, you shouldn't even be considering Florida State. That shouldn't even be on the radar. Because if you're a wide receiver and you go to Florida State next year, you're just waving the white flag, and that tells me you do not care about your career, not even to the slightest. If you want to tank your draft stock, sure, yeah, go to Florida State, but I don't think that's what these wide receivers want to do. They don't even have a quarterback who can get these wide receivers the ball. And here's the problem with this. Mike Norvell and his coaching staff, they don't develop players. All they have done year after year after year is just, oh, let's go get guys out of transfer portal. And guess what? Last year, they lucked up. It was a perfect storm. I can't even try to act like it was some planned thing. No. It was a perfect storm because, number one, the ACC sucks as a conference. And number two, you had Jordan Travis and a ton of older guys on that team. The transfer portal, it just worked out in their favor. But what you're seeing transpire this year is what I like to call the law of average. You can't build a team more so of a culture just based around the transfer portal. And it's why I said it last year, and I caught a lot of flack for it from Florida State fans and even fans in general. Florida State's undefeated, and I tried telling you, yeah, they have a terrible culture. And everybody's like, Matt, what are you talking about, buddy? They're undefeated. And I remember talking about it like it was yesterday. I was like, yeah, you'll see. Just give it some time, and, well, we saw what happened against Georgia. On one side of it, you had a team in Georgia who should have been in the playoff. See, that's the whole argument about this, and I don't want to talk about this situation too much because we talked about it last year. Georgia should have been pissed off more about not making the playoff than Florida State. Florida State wasn't even in my top 8 or 9. Florida State was pathetic. Now, with Jordan Travis, different conversation, but when he got hurt, no, they weren't even a top 10 team. But getting back on track here, like I was saying, in that matchup with the Seminoles and the Bulldogs, you had two teams who felt like they should have been in the playoffs. They deserved to be there. And what did Georgia do? They said, all right, yeah, we're pissed off we didn't make the playoff, but we're going to show you that we should have been put in. And that was their mentality. On the flip side, you had the crybaby Seminoles going, oh, no, if we can't be in the playoff, man, we don't even care about it. It's playoff or bust, championship or bust. We're not even going to try hard. Yeah, we're going to opt out of the game. No, we deserve to be in the playoff. You know, that whole crybaby fit they threw, and we saw what happened. There's no sugarcoating it. This program's cooked, and they have nobody to blame but themselves and the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mike Norvell. And hey, I'll clap it up to him. Mike Norvell, I actually respect you, my brother. Game is game. You pulled off a legal bank robbery. You scammed Florida State for every single penny they had, so, hey, I gotta respect it to a certain extent and degree. But like they say, not all money's good money, and obviously kind of joking when I say this, I don't know how he sleeps at night. What Mike Norvell is doing is the equivalent to banking in a 3. You know you shouldn't have made that shot, but you kind of got rewarded for it, so you just shrug your shoulders. You're like, it is what it is. I'll take my luck when I can get it in this life. That's the greatest analogy I can give you. Mike Norvell didn't deserve this big-time contract, but he lucked up and got it somehow. And then here he is. He's got all this money, and he can't even make a freaking bowl game. Screw making a bowl game. He's not even going to win 3 games this year. And here's the bad part about it. At least when you have a terrible program, let's just use Colorado, for example, last year, we saw signs of improvement. With Florida State, no, it looks like they're getting worse every single week. And what can you point to as a Seminole fan and say, okay, this is what I'm going to look forward to next year and it's going to be better? Nothing, as far as I can see. Quarterback play is going to be trash next year. And look, if you don't have a quarterback, you can't do anything. We saw it last year. That Florida State team was pretty dang good, especially on defense, and they didn't have a quarterback, and they couldn't do nothing. And it goes back to this. The problem is when you get all these transfer portal guys and you don't recruit guys out of high school, these guys you get out of the portal, like Keon Coleman, I like Keon Coleman, but Coleman doesn't give 2 craps about Florida State. He just used them as an opportunity. When you build a team, and I'll give some credit to Dabo Swinney, like Dabo is at Clemson, those guys care about Clemson. And I'm not saying all portal players don't care about the program, but you got to have a decent mix. It's got to be, I'd say, 90-95% high school recruits, and then the other 5 to 10% can be portal guys. Whereas Mike Norvell is just trying to build a college football program just off of portal guys. You can't do it. And I know some people may try to say, well, Matt, what about Coach Prime at Colorado? That is way different because Colorado, they had nobody. They had a bunch of bums when he inherited that team, so he had to bring in his own guys. And Coach Prime's a good head coach. I mean, he knows ball. Norvell? No, the guy's not good. And it has me legitimately thinking I'm doing something wrong in life. I chose the wrong career path. If Mike Norvell can make, what is he making, like $70 million in that new contract? If he can make that much money, I know I can. If Mike Norvell can do it, I can do it, and I dang believe 95% of you watching this can do it as well. There's no plan whatsoever, and what you're seeing is, going back to the main focal point of this video, the guys that did believe in them, and remember, a lot of these wide receivers that just decommitted, like I just said, they just decommitted, so they weren't even decommitting after the first couple of weeks of this nonsense. They were giving Norvell a chance, but now the guys that have believed in him don't even believe in him anymore, and you're in a dangerous position when that starts happening. And you want to know the sad part about it? Nobody deserves this more than that Florida State program and the fan base, especially the way they acted last year. And I hate to say it, I have no animosity towards the fan base, but y'all know I'm right. They acted like, and it's the only word to use, crybabies. And what blows my mind, and I tried telling them this, is you didn't even have an argument as to why you should have gotten to the 4-team playoff. You weren't even one of the top 8 or 9 teams. And the crazy part about it is Georgia showed you what a real playoff team looks like, and they were still complaining and crying. Like, dude, shut up. I wish I could say I feel bad for them, but I don't. Now, I do want to say there are some good Florida State fans out there, like with any fan base in any city you're in. you have good fans and you have bad fans. But unfortunately, last year, all those bad fans for Florida State really stuck their necks out. To all the good Florida State fans, it's much love and respect, and y'all know that. But in this life, you got to reap what you sow, and that's what's happening with Mike Norvell and Florida State. They're going to be awful for a bare minimum the next 3 to 4 years. I'm actually excited to see how bad they are next year. Because this year, it's not even funny making fun of them anymore because they're just beyond awful. There's nothing more to it. But next year, it's going to be refreshing to see them with that clean slate, a 0-0 record, and it just goes downhill after that. Many more things I could say. Let me know your thoughts down below. But Roman